Hey everyone, how's it going? AZREN here. Hope you guys are doing well. As you can see, shooting from my car today because I've had a relatively busy day, and I think this is going to be the most ideal time that I have to actually shoot a video. And I want to talk about creating artificial immersion environments today. You know, I think a lot of people know, if not most people know, that a very common thing that some people do is they will travel to a new country that speaks a language they are learning so that they can fully immerse themselves into that language. For example, myself, I have been learning and am currently learning Mandarin, which is why I've spent about 3 months immersed in the language by living in China. This is a strategy that works for a lot of people. However, I think there's a lot of people that, physically immersing yourself, it doesn't really work for everyone. Like a lot of people, maybe you can't afford it because you can't afford the plane ticket. Maybe you have a really busy work schedule and it's hard to get that time off. There's 1,000,001 factors that actually make learning by actual immersion quite challenging. And not to say that you can't do it, but I have a lot of empathy as to why not everyone chooses to do it. I have a lot of empathy for that. However, what recently has occurred to me is I think that creating an artificial immersion environment in your own city is very practical, and I think that there's a higher percentage of people who can actually execute on that and deliver on that and follow through with doing that. And there's a lot of ways to do so. There's many tiny little tricks and tactics you can do that I think a lot of people talk about, such as changing your phone language into whatever language you are learning. So if you're learning French, take your phone, change the language into French. I think similarly, you can do that with any other electronic devices you own, such as a laptop, a computer, television, things like that. You can change the language, which is just giving you extra exposure to whatever language you're learning. I think you can do some auditory things as well, such as in dead space, such as when you're driving, when you're on a bus, when you're on a train, when you're commuting to work, to school, or when you're studying. You can listen to things in the language you are trying to learn, whether it be music, whether it be a podcast, whether it be whatever, right? There's a lot of options, whether it be often there's recorded lessons you can listen to. I've seen people do that. The one thing I haven't seen a lot of people really talk about is creating what I like to call a foreign language camp. So this is something I'm doing in August of this year, so in a couple of months. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to find an online Mandarin teacher using probably italki, like the website, and I'm going to pay them to do essentially 4 hours of Chinese classes a day for about 2, maybe 3 weeks. And I like this for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is relatively speaking affordable. Yes, it'll probably cost me, I've done some basic math, probably $400, $500, $600, $700, which is a good chunk of change, right? But if you look at the alternative, if you look at the traditional immersion experience of traveling to a different country, it's actually relatively cheap. Think about traveling to China. You got to pay for the flight ticket, which could cost you $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, maybe $500 if you're lucky. You've got the flight ticket cost, which is relatively expensive. Then maybe if you're going to take lessons in China, you're going to have the lesson cost in China. You'll have your food cost. You'll have your accommodation cost. You'll have a lot of different costs while you're there. Not to mention, if you're traveling to China, you are forced to take some time off from work or school, unless you do it on vacation. I guess in that case, you're not really forced. But generally, you're more limited as to when you could actually do this whole immersion experience by traveling. When you're doing this artificial immersion experience that I'm talking about by actually taking a online camp per se, there's way more options, because you could do it like me, by doing 4 hours a day for 3 weeks straight, which is an option because I control my schedule, so I can do that. But let's say you don't. You could still do a version of this camp by taking, pick 3 weekdays, do 2 hours on each weekday, and then do 3 hours on Saturday and Sunday. That still gives you a significant number of hours in the week at a relatively affordable cost for a lot of people. Not everyone, I understand, I have empathy for that, but for a lot of people, a relatively affordable cost to get a lot of hours in a different language into your schedule. And when you're looking at this kind of strategy that I've been thinking about lately, I think the best thing to do is when you choose to do a camp like this, I think the best thing to do is you want to make sure that you're incorporating other free strategies, free strategies while you're doing this. So for instance, right, when you're doing this, this is a great time to change your phone into whatever language you're learning. This is a great time to make sure that you're watching an extra hour of TV or a TV show or a Netflix show or something in the language you're learning. Get that extra time in for free when you can. So all of a sudden you're getting 20, 25, 30 hours a week of whatever language into your schedule. And last but not least, I'll kind of end the video off on this note. I think a lot of people right now, depending on where you are in the world, this is summertime, right? Not everywhere, but a lot of places this is summer. And what that means is that likely, depending on the person, you probably have more time on your hands because you're not in school, or maybe you've got some time off from work, you have some vacation time, you have a little bit more space to yourself, a little bit more time to yourself. And so you've got the time to actually dedicate to whatever language you're learning, and you could probably figure out some time to do a bit of a camp for yourself, whether it's 4 hours a day like me for 2 weeks, or whether it's 2 hours a day, whether it's whatever it is, you can actually control that for yourself. But the moral of the story, the huge moral, is I think that creating a bit of a mini, a mini immersion experience in your own city, I think that's super practical for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people can take portions of the year, depending on, take portions of the year, or take portions of your day, take portion of your week, take a portion of your time, and you can really make some serious progress in whatever language you're learning at a relatively cheap cost. Versus when you look at traditional immersion by traveling, I like I said earlier, I have empathy as to why not everyone can do that, because it costs money and etc. We talked about it. So anyway, hope you guys liked the video. Hope you guys found that useful. I think it's a really good idea, and it's something I want to start talking about more. So yeah, we'll end it off there. See you. Bye for now.